Much longer here, Pig, because I believe we are finally going to be starting game number 1 of our first match of the day. Starting in the bottom left-hand side of the map, top of the red Terran player. He is the one and only INnoVation.
Playing for Kaisi Gaming there. And his opponent, representing Jin Air Green Wings, the 2017 world champion, and somebody whose name is coming up more and more as one of the greatest players of all time in StarCraft 2. It is the one and only Rogue. And I'm very excited to see him play this matchup, Ravi, Fear Dragon. It is the matchup where he can't just bop his opponent with his amazing build order and strategy choice. I think, you know, we're going to see a bit more of a balancing act here for Rogue, where even if he picks amazing strategies and he really takes advantage of how INnoVation plays, he's going to have to back it up with really solid mechanical play and lots of execution. Whereas in Zerg vs Protoss, it feels like he surprises his opponent, cuts a corner, and just wins the game outright a lot of the time. In this case, he's got to back it up with a lot more solid mechanics, lots of execution.
Yeah, especially versus a player like INnoVation. I know in the group stages, Rogue, he did get to play like that Terran versus Zerg versus Special, but I don't feel like they were a great representation of what Rogue's series is going to look like versus INnoVation, because it was one game defending a 2-Rax Reaper with like a fast 2-base lair and going to like mutas. And the other game was, like we talked about, the Golden Wall Roach Nidus Worm all-in, which is not exactly going to be quite as easy to do without, you know, a map like Golden Wall. But yeah, I really just want to see how Rogue's mid and late game of TVZ is actually going to be looking these days.
Well, so far INnoVation has skipped the SCV scout, which means he's got a very economic opening. INnoVation just saying, you know what, there's no way you're going to be early pool rushing me right from the get-go. So comes on in, and that Reaper here already looking for the tax. Damage to drone, trying to pick off some of those Zerglings, but good rotations, pulling the weak ones to the back. Queen pops out and says, get away from my babies, mate.
Yeah, just the basic little scouting, and of course we have the other Queen from the main base moving on forward also, but we do have a third CC already getting started up pretty quickly up here inside the main base here of INnoVation as he finishes up that factory, gets ready to swap it on off to pump out some of those ever so loved Hellions these days.
And just a heads up, because I really think the all three of us predicting INnoVation for the victory, I'm sure there's some Rogue fans screeching out there. I think just the heads up, the moment we kind of went to break before, we're like, yeah, Rogue could also just 3-0 this. He's so good right now, and his brain is so big, and yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, I think this map, it's so interesting to see where they go. Right now, though, like, Rogue is not doing anything wild, so I think he's actually going to play the late mid-game onwards here against Inno, and there's a few key things. So to break it down, okay, so Reaper doesn't get much scouting, but to break it down, you know, I was talking all yesterday about, like, hey, how do you deconstruct this style? How do you deal with it? And I really felt there were a few key secrets. Number one was to drone harder than you've ever droned before. You know, even if he goes Raven first, or the safety Banshee like this game, then the Raven after that, it doesn't really matter. It's light pressure. So if you're not going to go for the quick Spire, you're doing this style that Rogue's going, you do need to get a few extra Queens to normal. And actually make sure you're just like really defending those creep Shumas out front and not giving them an opportunity to kind of isolate any of the Queens. And the other big thing was after that, there's a double medevac pressure in INnoVation's build, but then there is a huge lull. He does not follow up with the double tank push. He does not push with the third and fourth medevac. He chills at home for the next like 3 or 4 minutes while he gets up his infrastructure. And that's the moment where the Zerg really needs to explode their economy, just take full advantage of the lack of pressure out of INnoVation and get way, way ahead.
Yeah, I mean, typically you are always talking about, oh, the Zerg player is looking for the opportunity to sneak in those extra drones, to really power up on economy or something along those lines. And they need to know when they're going to actually be making units. So if there is a big gap like that between when INnoVation is actually putting on any kind of pressure, that is going to be the opportunity for Rogue to try and exploit. But first, got to deal with the first wave of aggression. I mean, this is pretty typical pressure of like a Banshee poking on in, some Hellions trying to stuff off some creep humors, although I think that the Hellions are still waiting for that Raven because this is, in this case, not the Hellions scanning for those creep tumors. You're actually just relying on the Raven providing that insight on exactly where the creep tumors are so you can pick them off.
Slight supply block here for Rogue. Is kind of saving up for the mutas, so not the end of the world, but also keep in mind, Rogue has done this only now going up to 20 Zerglings. Up to now, it was like 10, 12 Zerglings, very light on the early defense, and it's got super fast gases on the third. So Rogue here wants to explode into a lot of mutas, the upgrades, and Inno's given him the space to do that. Yeah, Inno's poking and pressuring now, but he never really dives in with these Hellions at the moment. Because of that, Rogue has been able to squeeze out not just a good economy, but amazingly fast tech. With that Spire already finishing at the 6-minute mark, Rogue is really just saying, you know what, I know you're not going to lean into this pressure hard, skimped on the defense a little bit, and so far, looking good for Rogue, establishing the fourth. The creep, of course, is getting nipped away on the edges just a little bit.
Yeah, he's been able to pick off maybe like 3 or so creep tumors, but the fourth base being able to get down during the midst of all this was also really, really nice there for Rogue. And like you said, with the mutas going to be popping soon, you can already see INnoVation is starting to back on off. Not really a whole lot to protect the Raven or the Hellions against the mutas, so got to return on home and get those defenses set up over your third base.
Stayed out here too long. Yeah, this happened in some of the games yesterday as well. If Scarlet was able to squeeze out a quick enough Spire, losing that Raven, such a nuisance, really did not achieve all that much. Plenty of Marines here to defend for now, though, and keep in mind the upgrade advantage, one of the big hallmarks of this style for INnoVation. He has a 90-second lead on the 1-1. And the 1-1 is tying up with the armory finishing almost perfectly. Like, this is the most incredible thing about this build is INnoVation is so tight on these upgrades. He is so consistent.
Oh man, Muta's actually diving in there, picking up a couple more, not only of the Marines, but actually picking up a lot of the Hellions. And I want to know, in those games that INnoVation had played, those Hellions turning into Hellbats actually added so much tank ability when all the Banelings and stuff started coming on in. It really did feel like it helped a lot with the push, but now whatever push he's going to be planning to do, likely with 2-2, it's just not really going to have quite the same firepower.
That fourth command center is looking mighty exposed over on the left. There are 2 Widow Mines on it, and another 2 Widow Mines on the right as well. Ooh, Muta's got to watch out.
Oh my god. He is so good at the placement of those Widow Mines.
Oh, Zerglings do pick off some of these Widow Mine shots. Not getting hit by the big pack. 14 Mutas out, 84 drones. Rogue here really pumping out that economy. The creep spread's looking very nice behind it. Straight into +2 fire attack. So one of the weaknesses of INnoVation here, ooh, does get a nice little surround on the left, does Rogue, but the Widow Mine here, a few Marines coming out, gonna reinforce. One of the weaknesses is he only ever gets 1 turret in the mineral lines, and we saw him struggling exceptionally hard to deal with big Mutalisk harassment. Multiple games yesterday, they were able to just come in, take out the turret, and he struggled. For him, he really does not want to invest in that. He wants to be the one pushing out on the map, and we're hitting that point. He's almost maxed his 2-2s, getting past halfway done. He's got Thors, drilling claws coming in. He's trying to establish his fourth base. This is the moment where Rogue needs to start diving those Mutalisks in, and he's done everything we talked about so far. He said, you know what, there's not a lot of pressure, has built almost no Banelings and Zerglings on the ground, only now swapping into that production. He's going up to almost 100 workers, and as the Muta count is up to 16, soon to be 18, I think he's going to start hitting those mineral lines and keeping INnoVation pinned back. INnoVation wants to do the double prong push. Rogue dives right through the middle.
Yeah, and he sees that there aren't actually enough Marines over back at home to deal with this, so the Medivacs and those Marines are going to be going down. The Lings going to be kept out of that natural, but he's happy to just go over to this missile turret at the third base, start sniping that off. Finally, the army has returned, and there's still a small squadron of forces over on the bottom right-hand side, but I think with enough Lings and Banelings, he should be able to clean this up and keep this base alive. Does he actually have enough, though?
Oh, not quite. Gonna lose the, well, I mean, this is a 6th base, so it's not the most important, but it is a good bit of a trade here for INnoVation, just kind of keeping Rogue back a little bit. Of course, remember, INnoVation's economy not quite as powerful as Rogue's. 96 drones. 2-2 has just started 20 seconds ago. There is a massive window here where the upgrade advantage is there for INnoVation.
Yeah, he's really going to need to capitalize on that because he is losing so many of his units and he's still dealing with all these run-bys. There's still a few Marines left over here trying to rally on forward, but INnoVation takes some bailing hits at the front. He is going to try and push on forward, but he's got to do more than just one base worth of damage.
Yeah, remember though, it's all about the efficiency of the trades. And right now, there's not many Marauders with this army on the north. Banelings find the Marines. Ooh, that Marauder count, he really needs to get those across the map. But the Mutas dive in the main again, and that weak point of this style. Rogue here just expertly navigating. Anything he can do to hold on and buy time is going to be massive.
Yeah, Widow Mines, a lot of them actually just got picked off right there as well. A Thor's going to be coming in, and I really love the Widow Mine sandwich there, almost protecting the Thor, but it looks like Rogue is not going to be moving into that. He has Overseer still alive and with him. He's finally backing off with the Mutas, but INnoVation also backed off, and now 2-2 is going to be finishing up over here for Rogue. So is INnoVation still going to be able to make a lot of damage happen as he moves out again?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's not that two-pronged push anymore, is it? It's also something where his Marauder count, because those Mutas kept diving, he was more focused on Marine production to deal with that. There's only 7 Marauders on the map. This is a point where yesterday's game's INnoVation, when he was winning the game, he was up to 12, 15 Marauders at this point. So he needs those to tank up front. Their concussive shells needed to slow down the Baneling advance. The Zergling run by is massive on the top side of the map, but he's getting position as INnoVation, and Rogue here, he's second-guessing himself. He's not actually going for the counterattack. He's going to try and deal with this army. He's got a ton of units coming in.
Yeah, some of the reinforcements over here is going to be able to slow things down, but one of the hatcheries was already low in hit points, so he went down immediately. This hatchery, sitting down in the orange, going to be losing a lot of drones inside the back. He finally comes in from behind, tries to hit from the top side, but it's a little bit mistimed. The Thor doing a lot of damage to those Mutas, but at the end of the day, this Bioforce is going to get cleaned up.
Oh, this is getting to the point where Rogue still has 1,000 minerals in the bank, but he did lose a lot of units. Oh, the medevacs are going to survive this. Buried Banelings even on the map right now. These medevacs need to get the heck out of there. He's going to lose 1 or 2 of those on the retreat. But more Thors, more Mines, more Marines, and Marauders. The problem for Inno right now is that the Marine count is very low. 9 Widow Mines, 6 Marauders, a Thor, good medevacs. He's still got all those annoying problems for the Banelings to engage, but without having a big Marine count to capitalize on that at this moment in time, it's a bit scary for him. And of course, Rogue, he kept that hatchery alive. He's still on 85 workers. He's got so many bases up and mining. And Rogue is going to be closing that upgrade gap, you know? He's getting his 3-3 on the way. He shuts down the Widow Mine drop. And Rogue, he might not have been trading the most cost efficiently. The fact that he's only down about 1,000 resources speaks volumes. This is a huge difference to what we saw yesterday in INnoVation's games.
Yeah, definitely seeing a lot better cost efficiency, and we're going to see Bioforce move up to the north side. Angle, they haven't actually hit a whole lot thus far, but still not a lot of crease spread over here, so he's going to be able to get really, really close in on that hatchery, start sniping off a lot of the Lings as well, and I think the Baneling count has been heavily reset over here. There's only 13 Banelings, and I think that's including some of the Broad Banes out of the map, so he's going to be able to continue pushing on forward.
Oh, right now there's a lot of Banelings there. The Marines are very clumped, but they've got a Marauder wall. Oh, that Marauder wall is brutal. The Banelings unable to find the Marines. And that Thor splash is huge. The Mutas taking it appallingly bad fight there for Rogue. All of his Mutas get smashed out of the sky. He needed to defend this base, but not only does he lose the base, he loses his entire army. His 3-3, his Ultras, his +3 attack, all of his upgrades aren't quite there. Rogue says, please just pull back. Give me a minute. Give me just one more moment to get out some more units and catch up in upgrades. But INnoVation is not giving him that time.
Yeah, even with Ultralist popping, you can see over here, well, there's no Mutas anymore. So you can just load up, head over to the main base, and continue to drop around while the force on the bottom side is still continuing to pressure, still continuing to pick away at a few of those remaining drones that are over there. Even with this push getting cleaned up, you can see INnoVation leading quite a bit in supply. Has done an excellent job just taking the fights he needed to really pull this game in his favor.
Oh, yeah. And this push on the bottom now is going to come in as well. There's a single Ultralist trying to defend it. It's not enough. My gosh. INnoVation. Once again, lets the Zerg get to 97 workers. Relatively uncontested. Loses his Raven and Hellion. What damage did he do? Remember, that Banshee came in, damaged an Extractor, and he picked off 3 creep tumors. That was the opening pressure from INnoVation. The Zerg gets 97 drones. You're like, well, lol, lol, lol. I guess Zerg's just gonna roll banelings over. Apparently, INnoVation is unstoppable in this stage of the game. Rogue did so many things correctly. Remember when INnoVation first moved out on the map? He had the top army, the bottom army. Rogue studied his games from yesterday. He's like, every time you do this, you've got nothing in the middle. The Mutas and Lings ran through the middle of the map. They started killing SCVs, taking out his rally of units. He bought so much time. Rogue did so many things to take advantage of INnoVation's style and still ended up unable to hang on. That was just incredible play from Inno.
Yeah, I really was surprised because it really felt like, yeah, Rogue just had one of the best starts you could possibly ask for, right? Like, again, swatting away a lot of that pressure, and just even the Mutas just able to do so much damage on those run bys. But props to Inno for making it work, and like you said, just cost-efficient trades toward the end of things to really start bringing it back. Now, do you feel like there was anything about like the map or anything that made it a little bit easier for Inno to eventually do like those big pushes and have a bit more time, or not really even so much a factor as we move on to a map with a slightly easier third base to harass, I would say? Like, pillars of gold.
I think I would just probably give props to the fact that INnoVation has been putting out, I guess what I would call foraging Widow Mines, where he's not really sure about them. There was a moment where, because he'd been pushed back after all those things Rogue did correctly, INnoVation kind of one directionally pushed through the middle towards kind of the third base on the south for Rogue. And there was a moment where Rogue went across with like 80 Zerglings in his Mutas, but he flew over 2 Widow Mines and he kind of went, oh, it's been spotted. He cleaned up the Widow Mines and pulled back. And I think that was the moment where he kind of needed to cut off INnoVation's reinforce and pull him home. Because remember, the upgrade advantage is disgusting with this style. The Zerg kind of needs to buy time. Yeah, you've got more economy, but you're often down double upgrades against a composition that also counters yours as it gets into those higher supplies. So if you're fighting down 2 upgrades, they've got Marauders in front, Widow Mines spread, Thors to deal with Mutas. If you fight into that head on, we see what happens. Like, you can buy time with Banelings. You can't overwhelm it, or you just become grossly cost inefficient. So I think it was really good just putting out these little Widow Mine spotters and being very flexible. INnoVation coming home when he needed to defend with the Mutas, swapping into more marine production whenever the Mutas were diving into his mineral line, so we could kind of just grab his rally and stim them over rather than being stuck with Marauders. There was a lot of very small adjustments for INnoVation, and I think Rogue kind of needed to just keep the fighting away from his bases for a little bit longer to let those upgrades catch up.
All right. Well, we're going to find out if Rogue can make the necessary adjustments to try and take the game in the later stages, or if he's just going to make some adjustments in the earlier game stages and try and do something a bit cheekier. We're starting over here at the top right-hand side of the map, on top of that red Terran player from Kaizi Gaming. It is INnoVation.
And down here in the bottom left-hand side, I think he did a lot of things very correctly in that first game. Clearly studied his opponent, but wasn't quite able to finish it off. There's so many pieces that he needs to put together. Is he going to continue to try and face it down in the macro game, or is he going to bring out something a bit cheekier? Representing Jinair Green Wings, one of the most prolific Zerg players of our time, it is Rogue.
Now, Pig, I feel like in that last game, we kind of did touch upon, there was like this singular moment where it felt like Rogue was going to come in and actually get a pretty what seemed like it might have been a pretty cost-efficient cleanup on INnoVation's army. But you were mentioning it felt like there was a bit of a hesitation where he was situating his army around, he started sniping off some of the reinforcements, and then he ends up just pulling back and having to get like the cleanup a lot later on, doesn't quite get the super cost-efficient trade because his army clamps in from like the south side and the north side at like kind of mistimed opportunities, or like mistimed timings. So I feel like, despite everything we were saying about how good and cost-efficient the trades were there for INnoVation, I still feel like there was a lot of potential there for Rogue during that last game, right?
Oh, 100%. He did so many things right, and there's a reason a lot of Terran players don't get too happy if the Zerg gets up to 90+ workers. It's because they can afford to roll so many Banelings into you and have another, 60 Banelings behind the 55 they just rolled in. And I actually got to say, though, nice adjustments from Still, once again, no SCV scout here, And it's just like those little edges that Inno's taking where he's like, yeah. And then after opening Banshee game 1 for safety, I wonder if he just goes straight Raven this game. And I think it depends a lot on what his Reaper sees, because INnoVation consistently is diving right around the 4-minute mark. And that's something which neither Serral nor Scarlet did a great job of stopping yesterday, but Rogue shut down the Reaper in game 1 and kind of slowed down the Raven, and it did weaken INnoVation's opening. So, you know, there's little adjustments. INnoVation is saying, hey, there's no early pressure. I don't need to SCV scout. Super smooth opening. Really quick third command center again. Now, Rogue, on the other hand, though, if he can shut down the Reaper Scout, slow down the Raven, it just is not as impactful. If it gets in there and starts sniping those tumors a bit further back earlier, I think it's more of a problem for the Zerg player. But if you can keep him in the dark, INnoVation, it feels like he just doesn't take too many chances with this build. He's like, Hellion and a Raven is just too greedy against Ravager pushes. I've got to make a Banshee, even without Cloak, just to be safe. So I'm keeping my eye on that Reaper in the next 20, 30 seconds and seeing, are these Zerglings going to be able to zone it out? There's no Zergling speed until mega late, Fear Dragon. Rogue is being so greedy because he knows those Hellions aren't diving for INnoVation.
Yeah, I wonder, do you feel like there's ever going to be a point where INnoVation moves over to the Hellions and says, well, you still don't have Zergling speed. Like, I don't usually dive with this, but maybe I can. I guess it's a little bit harder on this map, especially since there are the queens there and you can kind of create a lot more of a body block wall to the natural.
Definitely is an option. I mean, already I think we see INnoVation, you know, the fact that he's got 2 Hellions with the Reaper here, poking the front, that's already more aggressive. A lot of the time he sits at home with like his first 4 to 6 Hellions and he's like, okay, I have 6 Hellions and a Raven, now I'll have just a light poke. And you're like, oh, really? Like, he gives a lot of room to the Zergs, but he knows that Rogue is so flexible. And because of that, comes in now, has a nice scout. Can he see the Roach Warren on the front of the natural? He has a lot of queens, a healthy drone count on the expansion. So even, you know, even you might be like, oh, we didn't scout the Roach Warren. Well, I don't think this is going to be like any sort of all-in attack from Rogue. I don't think he really needs to see the Roach Warren to defend an all-in. It's more about knowing what the next step is for Rogue. And to me, it's big Roach Ravager timing attacks, you know, 150, 160 supply. That's what INnoVation might have to worry about.
Okay, well, I'm very interested to see how that actually plays out against the style that INnoVation's been going for, where the 1-1 upgrades are now finally going to be starting on up, getting that kind of upgrade lead like you were talking about in the previous game. And the timing for the Roach Ravager, usually you're still going to be waiting until you can get up your layer, Roach speed. It looks like you are finally getting the Devil Ego Chambers as well. So usually you're just looking to pressure the third base, right?
Yeah, often looking for a big bust with the Roach Ravager once the third is down and exposed. However, with the double upgrades and the fact that droning's continuing, you know, Rogue sometimes does that, and he sometimes does it even off like 70 workers. But I've also seen Rogue, I wouldn't say throw matches, but do some really indecisive Roach Ravager timings. Go back to Katowice against Maru. He kept just doing some really, you know, I would call them soft Roach Ravager timings. I mean, it looks like a normal build. He still gets a 4th hatchery. The thing is, if the Terran keeps their tanks on the high ground above the third and doesn't expose those tanks, Roach Ravager, it's going to really struggle. When the Terran has this early of a build-up, if they get into tank production, they're going to be really good, but I mean, okay, it's the hiding of the style is the problem right now, right? There's a reactor on the factory, not a tech lab. The second factory is down, but okay, yeah. Rogue's hidden this information so well, and Inno really needs to start building siege tanks if he wants to be able to hang on. Otherwise, that 1-1 Roach Ravager timing attack is going to be brutal.
Yeah, he might just be finding this as the Marines are moving out across the map. And thankfully, I mean, if you're going for this Roach style, you don't exactly have a lot of anti-air outside of Queens or anything. But yeah, it's never a fun feeling where you're going to meet up against your army's opponent's composition. And that's how you sort of discover what you're up against. So immediately picks up with those medevacs, starts rotating around. And is he going to actually start up any tech? Okay, yeah, there are the tech labs immediately on those factories.
Yeah, I like that response from him. He's like, uh-oh. The double drop rotates around, is like, keep him at home, keep him pinned at home, buy time, bunkers going down in between the natural and third, because it's such a wide open base. He's building depots out front, but this is a problem. He's already got so many depots at his third base. A lot of the time, you can just pull off your third temporarily, pull back, and just survive the Roach Ravager attack, and you're good. But it's already on the way across the map. There's no tanks out yet. And I think this is a brilliant move from Rogue, taking advantage of the fact that INnoVation, you know, he does not have tank production by default with this style. I don't know if he's going to be ready in time. Ooh.
Well, INnoVation actually getting a couple of good kills over there with a drop still on the other side of the map, sniping off that fourth base. INnoVation just going to abandon the third entirely, says it's not worth trying to defend this location. I'd rather stay alive in this game. He's getting that hatchery pretty low, but with more Rogue reinforcements coming on in, it looks like Rogue will be able to hold on there as he gets a lot of free pickings at that third.
Yeah, these depots on the third. So not spotting that Roach Warren early, I was like, oh, it's not that big a deal as long as he sees it sometime in the next few minutes. Yeah, seeing it only when your first double medevac drop gets across the map, that was too late. And if you didn't lose all the depots here, it's not the end of the world because Roach Ravager doesn't scale too well. But now, not only losing this mining time on the third, but losing all those depots, you know, this is the supply cap to end all supply cap.
Oh, no.
Needs this snipe. Oh.
Narrowly gets it. That got so close, and that could have actually made a huge difference there because, you know, Queens come in with some more transfuses later on, making it harder to snipe off if it survives, but he's at least brought this back to 3 base versus 2 with his third orbital command still alive. And he's got his 2-2 getting closer and closer to finishing up. Do you feel like there's still just a batter down and defend mode right here for INnoVation? I feel like
yeah, but look at this angle. Look at this angle from Rogue. There's only 3 tanks out, and they're a bit too exposed. 2 of them going down almost immediately, and Rogue here with a brilliant surround. He's just going to crush on through. He's got way too much of a unit advantage, far too much surface area. INnoVation unable to hang on.
Yeah, there's simply just not enough over here for INnoVation as he desperately tries to get out some more siege tanks, pulls the SCVs into the Roach Ravager. But it looks like Rogue is going to be able to even up this series 1-1 with some really nice build order and strategic planning, kind of the exact way we were expecting Rogue to be able to probably take some maps off of INnoVation over here.
Yeah, really nice play from Rogue. Adapting to the player, says you're not building tanks by default. You're going straight to Widow Mine, straight to a 4th base. None of that is going to help you hold on against a Roach Ravager attack, and especially on a map here with such wide open bases. This map was made for Roach Ravager timing attacks. So Rogue there, he says, you know what, I'm not, after game 1, I am not letting you do that again. Not without taking advantage of this map. So Pillars of Gold, Pillars of Roach Ravager apparently there for Rogue, and a good way to get a win without letting INnoVation get to his comfort zone.
Absolutely. Well, before we go into game number 3, guys, we're going to give those players a short little break, so we'll be back in just a little bit to conclude this series. And we're back and ready to move into game number 3 here of INnoVation versus Rogue. We're moving on to Death Aura after the series is tied up 1-1 by Rogue's clever build orders and strategies, timings, whatever you want to call it. Big, that's not really something you can rely on catching INnoVation off guard with twice in a row, right?
Yeah, not necessarily. It's something where I think what you're looking for here as well is hopefully putting a bit of fear in. Maybe INnoVation starts dropping a scan. That slows down his build a little. Maybe he starts getting a tank or two, you know, and adjusting his own build order, not getting that same safe move straight into the Widowmine push, hopefully putting some fear into him. Honestly, though, I don't think INnoVation is going to make any adjustments. I think he's going to play the exact same style and maybe just try to keep his eyes open a little bit more if he sees it. No other map is going to be quite as powerful as Pillars of Gold for that big angle, both on the third initially, nor that surround. I mean, how sick was that angle from Rogue? He got right in behind the mineral line. That was like, I'm like, this is like a 300-degree surround on this army. This is actually the sickest Roach Ravager angle.
Yeah, and it just puts the Terran player in a very, very awkward spot there when you're trying to defend that third base, or even when you're just trying to defend the low ground of the third base. But guys, we're going to be hopping into game number 3. It's going to be on Death Aura. We'll be starting over here in the top left-hand side of the map, on top of the blue Zerg player, proudly representing Jin Air Green Wings, it is Rogue.
The big brain up there, playing for Jin Air Green Wings, but down here playing for Kaizi Gaming. Mechanics and just really solid, straight-up play. He is looking dominating in the late game of this matchup. More than almost any other Terran right now. Can he continue to bring his A game in the red? He is INnoVation.
I like the point you made where it does feel like INnoVation is the kind of player who will have something like that happen to him. And of course, like you were saying, that sort of style that Rogue went for was a lot stronger on a particular map, and allowing him to get those massive surrounds and everything, putting that pressure onto the third base is a little bit better on that map. But INnoVation still is absolutely the kind of player who will be like, yeah, but if I just do the same thing but better, it should work. So why do I need to change?
And that's what you want to have as a Terran player. Often your wins, your losses rest on slight adjustments, right? And whether that be execution based or just a bit quicker with swapping the factories onto the tech labs, getting a tank or two out, you know, these things make huge differences. So I think he's gonna have the confidence to say, hey, you've got to really keep executing perfectly to take advantage of me. I don't really want to see Rogue keep doing that Roach Ravager stuff, but I think, you know, I'm such a Rogue fan at times who also gets very frustrated because I feel like he should almost just beat everybody, but it's this matchup more than ever where I see him sometimes not have faith in just straight up macro play, where I feel like he could beat a player if he was just a bit better in the straight up game, but he always wants to get an edge, you know? We see Rogue opening up 3 hatch like before spawning pool or something in this matchup, or like a really quick third and then just get proxy raxed and die. We see him go Roach Ravager, you know, against a player who he could easily beat with Ling Bane Muta sometimes, I feel. But I actually kind of wouldn't mind more of the cheeky play here just because that game 1 looked so intimidating. You know, he had quite a few advantages and edges, and INnoVation was still a little bit too much for him. So I guess as opposed to those previous series where I'm like, dude, why are you doing the crazy, you know, the all-ins? I think it makes a bit more sense considering how dominating and comfortable INnoVation is in the late game.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's always a tough call and an evaluation you have to make for each individual opponent that you have, right? Because as awesome as really cool strategic choices and different build orders and surprises and gambits can be, there's something that you lack with that, right? It's consistency. If you have that super straightforward, very long-term macro-oriented style, like a lot of the time INnoVation tends to favor, then you do get a little bit more of that consistency. But if you are trying to be a little bit predictive with your opponent's build orders, or you're trying to basically find opportunities with these gambits to try and punish them, then yeah, you're gonna have these opportunities for your opponent to potentially be able to capitalize on that and punish you, kind of like you were talking about, you know, going for a 3 hatch before pool or something, getting punished for it. So yeah, it's a tough call, but I'm definitely with you on that. I feel like INnoVation is one of the players that it makes it really, really hard to not want to try and get an edge on him early on.
Well, this is an interesting opening from Rogue because you're meant to make a lair with this build about 20 seconds ago. It's meant to be a 2.5 base muta build from what his opening is. But he's pulled off gas and is now, after scouting that the starport was earlier than normal, that this was not a third command center, Rogue is going double upgrades, which is interesting. Normally I'd see the quick double upgrades as an answer to that. In fact, it's a Hellion drop though, and his Overlord is barely going to miss it until it gets in a bit closer to that main base. Does have a fair few Zerglings out front, but they are not in position just yet. Can this Hellion drop find the damage that's going to come into that main? Rogue's got to be quick.
Yeah, he's at least got a creep tomb over here, so he's going to see the Hellions unloading, gets a couple of the Lings at least in the way to body block these Hellions a bit. Hellions have still not made their way to the drone line just yet, but finally roasted and toasted a few of them. Picking up the medevac. More Hellions stream on into the natural, and we're starting to see, as those Lings are getting picked off, the drones are going to be bare and left to fend for themselves.
Oh, it doesn't quite focus fire all these drones in the natural, unfortunately, there, but oh, that's a lot of drones stacked up. Rogue, you gotta watch out, buddy.
Oh my god, the drone's pressing in the natural. He gets 10 workers, 12 workers, 13. He's gonna be able to maybe get off 2 more shots over here as he totals up to 16 workers killed. And hey, that's all before the Liberator harassment comes in. And as he gets up his own double engineering bays, he gets up his 3rd CC. I mean, this was an awesome attack from INnoVation.
Yeah, I mean, and it was really messed up execution from Rogue. He just, he was relying on the wall, but didn't leave a queen in the wall. And you could tell the panic hit. The moment those Hellions ran in the natural, Rogue panicked because he didn't leave anything back in the main, even though that drop just came straight back in. and honestly, this is such an unfortunate mistake for Rogue here, who he wanted to get the upgrade lead and use that to win several minutes from now. And it was like, oh, I'm actually not going to use the fast gas to go lair. I'm going to, like, you know, do this kind of different shift up. I'm going to win in the mid game. That all relies on you having a good mineral income. And now Rogue is playing catch up from behind. I love the situation here for INnoVation because he's going to have 2 medevacs coming across the map in about a minute's time. And Rogue won't really be in the setup that he wants to have. You know, he would love to be a bit further ahead on his way to a 4th base already, but he's not quite there.
Yeah, and remember, he didn't just lose some of the drones. He also lost like 20 Zerglings during the attack there because the Hellions were killing off a lot of the Lings first before going after the drones. So he's going to have to actually remake a lot of those Lings to make some of the Banelings to help deal with a lot of this other stuff. I love that that Liberator is just sieged off in the corner, making sure it is impossible to move it for a bit, but yeah, this is gonna be like maybe in a minute or two where the moment that Rogue is really gonna have to showcase some skill to try and overcome this hurdle.
Well, he's recovered to 65 workers, has a 4th hatchery on the way, and is already starting +2 carapace. So the upgrade advantage is still going to be there. Nice surround there for Rogue. Gets 2 of the Hellions. The Hellions are potentially morphing into Hellbats. Could cause a big problem with the next push here. Rogue is running circles. He's desperately trying to buy himself valuable seconds. Even more Zerglings come out to the left, but they get caught.
No. Well, losing those things is not a great start. Yeah. And, the Hellions, they're actually left at home there, so they deal with a Ling counterattack that could have bought a lot of time. And now INnoVation has nothing to fear. There's 14 Lings out on the map and 0 Banelings. 4th base is going to get focus fired down, but he says, oh, well, if you want to donate a few Lings before I kill your hatchery, I'll take it. Banelings come rolling on forward, but it's actually more of a little waddle than a roll. 4th hatchery going to survive for now, but these Banelings without speed are just not going to be able to make connections against a player like INnoVation.
Yeah, the Hellbats do morph in a bit of a clump, but the Banelings don't even get hit.
Okay.
One Baneling sneaks through the gauntlet, but nonetheless, I mean, the economy is looking amazing for Inno right now, who's got more barracks. His 4th and 5th barracks just finished behind this. Is adding more gases, a 2nd factory on the way, so he's still progressing. Notice his 4th command center way slower than normal, but the fact that losing mining time on one of the 3 bases, I mean, Rogue here.
Rogue?
You don't want to lose your queens.
Rogue?
Rogue.
Rogue? Hello?
Oh, no.
I think he's busy dealing with all the Marines on the right-hand side, so he just didn't have the attention span. He's trying to get it to surround with these legs, but oh my god, the compromise connection.
Oh gosh, this is brutal. INnoVation is all over Rogan. I mean, he had a good start, but this is the sort of thing. It's like you give INnoVation that sort of advantage, you're like, well, maybe Rogue can catch up. He's re-droned quite well. You just suddenly see so many units on the map. When INnoVation has that sort of army advantage, you get really desperate as the Zerg, and INnoVation, I mean, it all started with a Hellion drop, Rogue pulling his queen out of that natural wall, and those extra 4 aliens diving in, far too much damage.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard point to recover from there, so all credit to Rogue. Like, it was not a game from there that he was in a good spot from. Like, if he did recover, that was going to be a really awesome play by Rogue, so it's kind of understandable from that point. But yeah, cuts a corner there, trying to sort of anticipate, like, okay, well, you were talking about like the starport not really getting the tech lab or anything, going for the Liberator, and he's like, okay, well, after seeing that, I think I'm just going to go down the double Evo chamber, but not being prepared. Man, that's definitely tough. And like you also said, actually, the execution not quite there on the defense as well.
It was interesting to see. The double Evo response, it's something I'm like, oh, don't you normally do that against a third command center, right? Because you know it's going later in the game. But Rogue is a man of strange reactions in this matchup. And honestly, if there's one thing that's haunted him in big series against the top Terran players, it's Hellions running in and killing far too many workers. I honestly, if you look at all of his series against Maru, INnoVation, TY, when he does lose or come close to losing, a lot of those games are off the back of him getting too fancy and tricky with his opening, especially when he does these double Evo chamber openings. He has a very high percentage of losing over 20 workers to the Hellion pressure. This is like a pattern with Rogue. When he rushes those upgrades, he tends to leave an opening, and it's just this bad habit where I think maybe he's not as practiced in those situations. He's now on his final life. He's got to win the next 2 games in a row, so no more silly mistakes like that.
Yeah, and it's also tough because, I mean, INnoVation, he played, I think, like a total of 5 or 6 different games, or maybe actually even more, in the group stages where he was just showing off his TVZ, basically, showing off all these different things and everything. And he never actually did go for like any of those Hellion drops and stuff. So maybe Rogue just, he feels like a lot of these games, INnoVation, you were talking about this, he hasn't been committing with his Hellions. He's usually been a little bit more passive on the outskirts, especially going for like that Banshee or first and then Raven opening and stuff. So maybe it just wasn't something he was as concerned with, but definitely ended up coming back to bite him in the butt regardless. And now we start off game number 4 here. INnoVation starting up 2-1. And speaking of the devil, we have down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map from Kaizi Gaming, the red Terran player. He is INnoVation.
And up here in the right-hand side, focused as always, and he is, of course, a Katowice champion. He's wearing the Katowice t-shirt right now. In the top right, in the blue, representing DreamHack Green Wings, it is Rogue. Is he a 2-time Katowice champion?
2-time? I remember 1. I don't remember the second one. Could be right, though.
He won this year in dominating fashion. I think he might have won 2 years ago as well, if I remember correctly. So either way, he's obviously a world champion in not just BlizzCon, you know, the global champion 2017, but also just looking so awesome at a lot of big tournaments. But definitely this is the matchup where he does struggle a little bit more against these absolute tip-top players.
Yeah, it's tough when you have players like INnoVation also who, like we saw kind of in that first game, look really, really strong as it goes to the later stages. We are seeing that SCV scout this game, so is this like an Everdream thing a little bit, or I feel like this is just one of the maps that iconically in my mind, I feel like I see a lot more Ling run-bys, a lot more cheeky plays and stuff.
Yeah, I guess, you know, INnoVation so far has done a great job of adapting to the series. 2 games in a row. No SCV scout, and then that, you know, that last game just actually taking a second gas and a starport on time, which is so rare for him recently. And as you said, surprising him with the Hellion drop and the Hellion dive. And I think you're playing Rogue. I feel like you probably could have gotten away with skipping the scout, but I think INnoVation was like, just got to check, make sure there's no spawning pool first, make sure there's no speedling flood. And just felt like confirming, since Rogue is such a tricky guy, he wasn't going to get taken advantage of. INnoVation did not want to get too predictable and leave a big hole in his armor.
Yeah, and I actually, to some extent, I do actually like that as well, because I think that INnoVation, he's got a game lead right now, so in the sense, he does have 2 games or 2 opportunities he can beat Rogue. but you really don't want to have to go to a game 5. I feel like that is where Rogue can get really scary, because he is, like we said, that sort of strategic player. You can find these cute little openings or timings or try and find these strategic windows. You can capitalize on whatever you're doing. And having to play Rogue and effectively, you know, it's a best of one with a lot more information and backstory between the players. That's not always the most comfortable spot to be. So yeah, I like just playing it safe here.
Yeah, you don't want to give him too much information, right? Rogue's big brain. He can absorb that information and start to dissect you a little bit. This time around, we are seeing Rogue going for that 2 base muta. So same as the last game, except he's actually committing to the lair this time around. So rather than kind of changing it up. Ooh, that Overlord at the front is going to get sniped. The barracks comes down, gives that high ground vision. No hanging out on the pillar for you, mate. That's a good way of denying info. Rogue's very blind right now, so he kind of just has to play the most generic rush up into mutas off the 4-gas game. Doesn't have a lot of an idea of what's coming next.
Yeah, does the floating over of that barracks to go snipe off that overload, does that actually delay the marine count? Because, you know, with the 2-base muta, if you do decide to go for something like that you are relying a lot on a very small number of marines to be able to cover a handful of those bases, right? So I wonder if that's going to impact anything at all.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does slow down, like the tech lab and the stim coming down, but a lot of players aren't even using that barracks at this stage of the game. They're building on the tech units, and this Reaper Scout's fantastic. I think INnoVation can assume it's muta play. You've seen Zergling speed. You've seen, you know, pretty much everything that's going on. You know there's a 3rd hatchery, so I don't think you look at this and go, oh, he's going to knight us me with roaches or anything like that. Even without actually spotting the Spire, I think INnoVation is well prepared. 2nd and 3rd barracks is on the way. Now, he could go and poke with his Raven Hellion. I would love to see him do that, look for an active tumor or 2, but then just go home. Instead, he's actually just going to harass with the Raven on its own, but it's on a timer. I don't like this move from INnoVation. I think go across, throw down an auto turret, but he's got to get across the map a lot more directly than this. He can't be so coy with it, because if he doesn't get home very soon, that Raven's just going to be easy pickings for the mutas.
Yeah, this is turning into such a small, slim timing over here for INnoVation actually to make this Raven get the damage done and escape out with its life. Because, yeah, the Spire is seconds away from finishing, and the Raven is just arriving now. So you throw down, what, like 2 auto turrets really quickly? The Queens are even going to be able to get a lot of chip damage done on this? Oh, no. Is the Raven just going to go down? Oh, my God, the Raven goes down to the Queens. Oh, that's not how he's not even actually party down drones. That's not how you want that to go.
Yeah, I guess you could argue the Raven's not the most important unit until much later, right? Because it's going to be a while till you're really trying to push through the 2-base muta. You're more just in turtle mode here. Since, I mean, economically, INnoVation's ahead. He's equal on workers. He's got his 3rd landed. So he's starting his missile turrets. As long as he can just get enough Marines out now and defend his 3 bases, he's in a pretty fantastic situation. Now, his 4th and 5th barracks are already down. I think he's going to be rushing to that 2nd factory right around the time his armory goes down is when I'd expect that. But for now, it's just non-stop Marine medevac production. The muta's coming in, and they're going to see if they can find an opening.
Yeah, there's about 14 Marines out, with a lot more going to be churning out soon, but there's still this small little window where it looks like INnoVation is going to mostly be relying on a lot of these missile turrets inside the main base. Got one up in the production line as well, which I actually really, really like, but still going to be losing the the refinery, as well as actually a couple of those SCVs and even a reactor.
Yeah, INnoVation is going to try and counterpush here. Marines and Hellions, though, saying, guess what? You need Banelings at home, and guess what? You don't have them. Rogue's being greedy behind this. INnoVation reading the player. He knows that Rogue is trying to be greedy behind the mutas. He's going to dive in here. Oh my God, the killer instinct from Inno.
And he is just killing absolutely everything over here. The Queens are the primary focus of the defense. Oh, the medevac does get sniped off with a lot of its units inside of it. So Rogue does eventually get the cleanup there. I really am amazed that Rogue was able to hold on at that point, since he was actually just down to 8 lings when that attack came in.
2 small pieces of miss micro there, very crucial for INnoVation. Number 1, he did not retarget the Marines. They were shooting the Queens even once the mutas engaged. So he was wasting the damage output on a tanky unit that itself isn't much of a threat. You need to retarget on the Zerglings and the mutas, and you can do that as simple as giving a move command and then an attack move. But he missed that, and then he picked up into that medevac that didn't have boost on cooldown and actually just combined a target so the mutas could shoot it down. Now, it's not terrible for Inno. He's still got a good economy and so on, but but I think he missed an opportunity there where if he took down a bunch of those mutas, this would be looking much better. Now, suddenly, you're looking at a Terran where his 2-2 is massively delayed, so he's losing some of that upgrade lead. And where are the Thors? Where is the second factory? It's not there. He's only just told that to start building. He's going to keep trying to push with the Marine Mine, but this is now fragile. These Banelings very hard to deal with this fragile Marine Mine force.
Yeah, we got 8 more Banelings coming in alongside the 10 that are starting to swarm on forward. Looks like one of the Banelings managing to get a very, very narrow connection there on some of the Marines, but not quite killing them off just yet. Widowmine's getting cleaned up over here, and it looks like, okay, Muta's just going to fight without the Lings, but the Banelings are there to at least push the Marines back until the reinforcements arrive at least. Sniping off a medevac on the retreat. That's a nice pickoff there for Rogue, but he really needs some more reinforcing Lings to actually buffer for those Banelings and Mutas.
Oh, Inno goes way too deep on creep once again here. I think that one he's going to get punished for. Those Banelings are hot on his tail. The reinforce arrives. Not too bad. That's worth it for Inno. That's an okay trade. He's keeping the momentum up. There's more Banelings morphing, though. One upgrade's 30 seconds away. Rogue's upgrades are so damned late. He's still got 13 mutas in the skies, but he needs more of those Banelings and Zerglings, and he needs those upgrades to kick in.
Yeah, the creep trade is finally receded over here. Widowmine going to be looking for a connection. It doesn't quite manage to get the most amazing connection, but he has still dealt with the majority of the Banelings there. There's 5 more Banelings morphing, and there's 14 still out on the map, so Rogue does still have some of the units he needs to push this further and further back, but I actually really like that these units have been able to snipe off so many of these medevacs every time he forces INnoVation back. 8 medevacs already killed this game.
Yeah, good point there, Ravi. I think that's massive. Only 4 medevacs left now, and we've got a ton of Marines. The firepower is there, but this is the breathing room Rogue needed. 1-1 finishes. He starts +2 melee. Can't quite afford +2 carapace, which is the more important upgrade. There we go. It does kick in. Suddenly, it's only a 45, 50-second upgrade advantage for INnoVation. There's a big period here where they're equal on upgrades. And Rogue, he's going to look for these run-bys. Oh, those Marines need to get out of there.
Well, they're going to get surrounded quickly by the Zerglings, but nice focus fire there from INnoVation. He does manage to snipe off a couple of those Mutalisks. We're starting to see the Lings on the retreat. They are going to get pushed back by those Marines, but yeah, it kind of turned into an awkward trade there for Rogue, I would say.
Yeah, the weak point, though, with how much INnoVation has been counter-pushing after the early mutas is INnoVation's fourth is massively delayed compared to where he normally is. So because of this, there's a lull in his income, right? And a lull in his setup with things like the second factory being delayed. And don't get me wrong, he's still getting to a very nice position, but this has given room for Rogue to do Rogue things. 87 workers, 6 bases, getting a rich gas base in the middle. There is going to be an abundance of Zergling Baneling. The thing is, with no hive anywhere in sight, Rogue is now going to need to focus on backstabs and counterattacks. As INnoVation maxes out, we've seen what happens if you fight this front on. Rogue needs to delay with some Zerglings and Banelings, and he needs to backstab with the rest of his army. You can see he's already split on both sides of the map. Looks like he's going to try and fight this front on and just try to take the better 2-angled engagements. There's no Marauders on the south or the north. It's mostly Marine Mine on both sides, so it's a very fragile army. It's all about the Baneling hits. Can they find the center of the Marines?
Banelings getting sniped off by a handful of those Widow Mines on the north side, but looks like INnoVation going to try and make a little bit more progress over here on the south side. Banelings getting some big connections on a lot of the bio. The Widow Mines not even going off at all over there. INnoVation having a little bit more luck on the north side, but it looks like he's just having to do a full-out retreat on the south to deal with the mutas.
Ooh, the mutas come into the main to get a tech lab, but the Marines in the turret line and 3-4 Mutalisks go down just like that. And the drop going to the high ground of the main, he says, hey, your mutas should not be on my side of the map right now. INnoVation here is starting to rack up the damage.
And the Widow Mine actually caught so many of the Banelings as those units are trying to make their way over to the main base.
The mutas! The mutas just got intercepted on their way home to deal with that as well. 10 Marines cut off the rotation from Rogue. Rogue was so busy dealing with the drop, he just lost all of his Mutalisks. INnoVation